So what is an REO property and what do you need to know about it? So REO stands for real estate owned. So that is property that has already gone through the foreclosure process that the bank has taken back and they now have it on their books and they are managing that asset. So it's real estate owned. And in the banks, they usually have somebody called a special assets manager that might be in charge of those REOs. Sometimes they have an REO department, and sometimes the special assets managers manage the loans that are in forbearance and in the process of foreclosure that are in default. So when you call a bank, you want to ask for the REO department, and generally that's going to be a special assets manager that's going to be in charge of that department to get a list of properties that they have that are bank owned. So REO is real estate owned that's already taken back, owned by the bank, gone through the foreclosure process. So that's very different than a property that is in the process of foreclosure that goes to an auction at the courthouse steps. That's different. So that's a foreclosure or pre-foreclosure that's being auctioned off at the courthouse steps. And oftentimes what happens is the bank, especially if there's no equity, ends up with the property and they take it back. All the liens are wiped out and they turn around and relist that property for sale, or they take it and they manage it on their books for a while and they release it for sale later. Sometimes they put money into them, sometimes they don't. The one thing is that banks are not stupid. They know what property is worth and they generally do not let them go at a bargain unless there's something going on internally and they're trying to clear the books. So the end of the year is a great time to be looking for REO properties. So I'm going to say that again. The best time to call the banks and look at their list of REO properties is the end of the year. A lot of times they just want to wipe the books clean at the end of the year going into the next year. So they'll let some stuff go for pennies on the dollar sometimes. Sometimes they won't, just depending on the bank's balance sheet, where they're at, what their capitalization looks like, what size of bank they are, things like that. Now there's websites you can go to. Of course, HUD, HUD, Housing and Urban Development. They have a real estate owned website where they list all of their foreclosures, all the property that they have taken back. It's called hudhomestore.com. You can look on that for properties to bid on. Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, they have their own pages on their websites where they list all of their properties that they are selling, that they've taken back in foreclosure. So does the USDA. So does the FHA. So do the big banks like Citibank, Wells Fargo, Chase. All the big banks, Bank of America that do mortgages. They all have pages on their websites where they list their properties for sale. You type in the address, zip code, whatever. And then there's the traditional, auction websites that you can go to, like, auction.com, sites like that. But those generally are not the best sites in terms of finding information. Pretty much usually the properties are going to be listed in the MLS that the banks have listed for sale that are also listed on their website. So you can find a lot of that information on the bank websites. Now, as far as commercial and multifamily properties that have bridge debt from local banks, you can call up the local and regional banks and even some of the big banks and ask for the REO department and or special assets managers. So you can get a list of properties that they have, and it could be a mixed bag. It could be land, houses, commercial, office buildings, industrial, retail, multifamily, hotel. It could be anything. And I know in the hospitality sector, there's a lot of foreclosures coming down the pike towards the end of this year, going into next year. A lot of those owners are handing the keys to the properties back over to the lender. So there's going to be a lot of hotel properties and retail properties coming on the market here in the next year or so. So anyways, that's kind of a little bit about what real estate owned properties are. They've gone through the foreclosure process, so they're being sold free of any encumbrances. Generally, you still want to do a title search and make sure there's no pending issues, but generally all liens get wiped out through the foreclosure process. And the only thing that the owners would still be liable for would be any kind of taxes that did not get paid for during the foreclosure sale. That still falls on the owner to take care of that. But in terms of general liens that anybody may file or judgments on a property or whatever, once it's foreclosed on, it wipes all that out. So you're buying the property as is. That's an REO. They're being sold as is, but you can still do your inspection for your own purposes, things like that. But they're generally going to be a cash sale as is, no contingencies, that kind of thing in order for you to get those. So end of the year, that is the time to start looking for REO properties, and that is coming soon.